Hi there. Welcome to today and welcome to a new year, 2023. And this series is a perfect one to be hearing at this time of year because often we have new goals and new plans. It's kind of nice. I find it refreshing to kind of clean out the old and to start the new again. Every morning, every day we get that, but every year we get that as well. So some of us got new planners, and probably most of us got new calendars. Well, John Hoerauf, who is my husband, I'm thankful to say, he's sharing with us his series on authentic motivation. And today's session, called Changing Your Mindset, is a winner. So they're all winners. Okay, I truly believe that. But I also believe we've heard a lot about mindset, and it's not a bad idea to refresh our minds, get a new perspective, and take this new mindset into 2023. And so I'd like to thank John for being here and to thank the Strategic Advisor Board for sponsoring this video. All right, take it away, John.
So far, we've looked at motivation and tried to define it as a force that's trying to influence your will to go a certain direction. We looked at lower order motivations, which are kind of the traditional way of doing things. Basically, when we just use our willpower and sheer strength to make something happen, to force it through, and how those tend to fall short, and it's hard to bring long-term change with that. And one of the reasons is because these higher order motivations behind the scenes, especially the toxic ones, derail our best efforts to try and make things happen. And I touched on the toxic motivations. There's really a lot more that needs to go into that. It's hard to talk about in just a few minute video, but that's really where a lot of the work happens, is finding out what those are. Discovering them in the first place is really difficult because, like I said, they're loud, but they're so much in your life that you don't pay attention to them, like the train, living by a train track, or the power lines, or something that's been going on ringing in your ears for a long time and you forget it's even there. So discovering them is a big part of the process. So that's something we can look at in the future. But just as an overview, that's what's there. And so you have those toxic motivations, and how do we overcome them? How do we change our belief system, really, is what we need to look at. Because we have these names that we've been given. We have these beliefs about ourselves. Your beliefs about yourself are kind of like your beliefs in the law of gravity. If you drop a pen, you don't look up to see where it went. You just look down because you know that's where it fell. If you sit down on a chair, you don't generally test it first unless it looks really wobbly. Maybe it's an old chair or a lawn chair that you don't trust. But just generally a chair, you just sit in it, assuming it's going to work for you. When you get in your car and start it, you assume it's going to start. Because there's a belief that's there that we don't question every single move we make. We couldn't do that. So we have to make a lot of assumptions in life. And these toxic motivations are there as that behind the scenes belief system that kind of keeps us stuck in a certain way. And until we take the time to find out what those are, we can't move forward to change them. But once we know what they are, once we start seeing that this is a name that I have of myself, that I'll never achieve anything great, or whatever that negative name happens to be, that's when I can start challenging it. And then that's when we start changing our belief system. Now, it's not just a matter of deciding what we want to believe about ourselves and saying it over and over again. It's finding ways that we can really build that on something true. And for you, it might be, for some people, it's their spiritual life, that they have a belief in something bigger than them that cares about them and that has good for them. And then they rely on that, and they ask God who they are, who He meant them to be, and then they draw from that. If you don't believe in God, there may be other things that you can draw from. Maybe it's looking at past experience. Maybe it's somebody that you trust. Or maybe it's just seeing goodness inside of yourself. But in some way, you need to find something solid, something concrete that you can hold on to, and that you can then begin changing those beliefs about yourself. And you do this is hard work. This is also involving the willpower and the grit. But the difference is Instead of, if you remember, I talked about the traditional view of motivation always has to be filled by something. Where this new look at motivation is looking to the outside to draw something in. It's drawing its energy from something as opposed to always having to put energy in. And as you're looking to that outside source for a new view of who you are, then that's what allows you to begin making those changes. I gave the example of if I was raised as a kid always believing that I was fat, and then now as an adult I'm trying to lose weight, and I diet, but I try to exercise, but I see myself as a fat guy who's just exercising. I'm trying to become something I'm not as far as my inner beliefs go. But if I can change my beliefs and realize, no, I'm actually a healthy person inside. I'm a fit person. The real me is different than what my body is looking like right now. All of a sudden, it's not my weight anymore, but the weight feels extra. It feels different than me. And then instead of trying to get rid of something that is actually me, I'm change my perspective and I'm actually taking off something that doesn't belong to me in the first place. And then that can allow for that long-term change. Now, I know that's kind of a simplistic look at it because we're condensing this into just a few minutes here. But that is the process that happens. It's identifying those toxic motivations and coming to terms with what they are and how they really have affected us. And then it's finding a way to change my identity, my view of who I am, and to grab onto something that's bigger than me that allows me to change my beliefs. And then from those, as those beliefs change, then my behaviors will change. And then that's when that motivation becomes lasting. Because remember, if motivation is a force that's directing your will, as my identity changes, that force becomes a positive force that's directing my will. And as time goes on, instead of me trying really hard to not do these things that I know I shouldn't do, I'll become drawn to do the things that I should do. And then accomplishing that goal becomes a lot easier. So that really is kind of the full circle of breaking through to lasting motivation. Changing the way that we traditionally do it, finding out the toxic motivations that have been driving us, and replacing them with a new view of ourselves, a new identity, so that those higher order motivations can then fill us and take us to where we want to be and where we know we could be and should be.
Thank you for sharing with us, John. That was awesome. And I look forward to hearing more. It sounds like this was the overview this week and that we're going to get into some of the nitty gritty. So, hey, just stay posted and there's some more great things to come. I hope you have a great day and we'll see you back here.